Welcome to the 615 Sessions podcast on this Friday, February the 7th. We are always happy to have you be a part of the podcast here on the A to Z Sports Podcast Network. I went to New Orleans for a couple of days, came back yesterday. No, I haven't caught up with you guys on primetime, if you're a primetime viewer since Tuesday, but we've got Titans headlines, a good deal of Titans news to come out of the Super Bowl. Bert's got some questions for me. I have some questions, ironically enough, for Bert, and we'll enjoy each other's presence in the meantime. The podcast is always made possible by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. They've got a grand prize drawing right now for their January VIP Players Club sweepstakes at 3 p.m. On, what was that, Monday, when they had their grand prize drawing for the Zen Sports VIP Players Club. They've got all manner of great giveaways for you on a regular basis, whether it's the opportunity to attend the big game, whether it's the opportunity to attend the college football playoff. They've got a variety of different options for you. Zen Sports always makes betting that much more fun. Promo code ATOZTN in the Zen Sports app gets you in on all the action. So, Titans headlines from the Super Bowl that are worth talking about. Probably in order of most important to least, there's three that I think that we need to touch on here today before we get Bert in here and talk a little bit about his beloved Lamar Jackson being the biggest snub of the regular season award ceremony last night. First and foremost, there are a lot of people paying attention to this team for obvious reasons that they hold the number one overall draft pick. But there are far fewer people talking about the parts that currently exist on this team and the ripple effects that will result from this number one overall draft pick or whatever decision that they choose to go with it. The most interesting Titans-related headline that I saw in New Orleans was actually an interview done by our friends at 3HL, who are still, they're either on their way back by now, 3HL, or they are still in New Orleans doing their show, but they've been down on Radio Row all week long. I was in New Orleans for 26 hours. I didn't do the Radio Row thing this year. I just went down for some meetings and to catch up with some people, and then came right back so that I didn't miss too much of the conversation around the Super Bowl. But 3HL's done a great job. One of the interviews that they did was with former Falcons general manager and one of the Titans GM job interviewees, Thomas Dimitroff, who talked to them about a part of his plan that he presented to the Titans in an interview, in his first round interview with them. He didn't make it past the first round, and potentially this is why, but that he had planned in part, or had presented a plan that involved, first and foremost, them trading the number one overall draft pick this year, which many people would agree with, but two, starting Will Levis as a part of trading the number one overall draft pick and trying to maximize whatever value that Will Levis has left to the roster. Now, whether or not that was a reason or one of the reasons or the biggest reason that Dimitroff didn't advance to the second round of interviews and wasn't considered for this job, that's a question that only the people in the room can answer. But I imagine that it had something to do with it, given that Brian Callahan's job is on the line heading into 2025, and that Brian Callahan probably doesn't want to attach himself any further to the Will Levis experience, given just how poorly the Will Levis experience went. Now, all of that to say that there is some school of thought, we don't have to dwell too much on it, but there is some school of thought to trying to keep Will Levis around, to allow him to compete at bare minimum heading into this year's training camp and a variety of different things that they have going on with the Titans quarterback situation, given that Will is the only quarterback on the roster. And, you know, passing a judgment on Will Levis as far as his career would say that they don't even think him capable of being a quality backup in the NFL. And if you could get a cost-effective quality backup that's already on the roster out of Will Levis, then you would feel pretty good about that. But then there's the trust factor that you don't want to put your lives in Will Levis's hands if you are in a critical situation or a critical stretch of games where whomever ends up being the Titans starter misses. The cliche is always, if you have 4 games with a backup quarterback, you want that player to be able to go 2-2. You want that player to be trustworthy. You want that player to be turnover averse. And right now, at this point of his career, that is very much not Will Levis. Now, speaking of Will Levis, that's the second most interesting headline, Titans related, to come out of Super Bowl week. Jimmy Wyatt talked to the, I guess we'll just call him the Titans quarterback until otherwise things change. But this was an interesting insight into how Will Levis is approaching this offseason, given that the Titans have the number 1 overall pick and quarterback is very much at the top of the discussion.
Taking the good with the bad and making sure that I'm taking note of all the things that happened, and most importantly trying to clean up the things that could have made the season go a little smoother if I were able to clean up beforehand. So a lot of good, a lot of things that I think I was able to improve on from last year, and a lot of stuff that I know is up to the level of what needs to, happen as an NFL quarterback, and a lot of throws too that a lot of NFL quarterbacks, weren't able to make. And I think that those plays give me the confidence to go and improve on the things that I need to propel me further in this league. So I'm looking forward to actually meeting him in person when I get back in the building next week, and then it was cool just hitting him back and forth. The first thing I noticed was the 617 area code, so that's close to my heart. So had a little talk there, but seems like a great dude. Obviously he's done some amazing things with the Chiefs, and looking forward to getting to know him and seeing what he's got planned and what he sees for the vision of this team. It doesn't change the process. I feel like I think I have a really good schedule and outlook on this next couple months before we start up OTAs, and I'm going to put myself in a great position to be healthy and be ready to play, and hopefully I can do whatever I can to show them that I can and should still be the quarterback for this team. And I feel like it's in their best interest, and they got to do their due diligence to make sure that they know who's out there and evaluate who they feel like they should evaluate. So it doesn't offend me at all, and I know going 3-14 doesn't get you your job security any year and for any team. So I know how it goes, and all I can do is put my head down and work to again show them that I can still be this team's quarterback.
And that's the exact right approach. So that's Will Levis at the Super Bowl, and understanding kind of where everything is at this point in time, and wanting to understand Mike Borgonzi's vision for the team. We'll see how much of the vision for the team involves Will Levis being a part of this team. But of course, we've got plenty of time to talk about that. The third most interesting Titans headline to come out of the Super Bowl was Jeffrey Simmons, his nomination for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. 32 players get nominated from all 32 clubs each and every year. Eric Armstead was the player who ended up winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive lineman. But Jeff's done a lot of good work in the community. He has, I've been able to attend one of his charity events. He did a Thanksgiving meet and greet with, I can't remember the exact, I think it's Backfield in Motion was the organization, through his Give 'em a Reason Foundation, where he brought in a variety of kids who are looking for mentorship opportunities, who are looking to expand their horizons and their worldview. Brought in a bunch of community leaders to sit at a variety of tables with these kids, and also were able to give them a Thanksgiving meal out of that in conjunction with our good partners on the radio show, Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So Jeff has done a lot of different things like that throughout the course of the year, and he's been really good about that since he's been involved in the community. You can tell that Jeff cares about being a presence in Middle Tennessee, and also using his platform to help serve his community in Mississippi. And that's something that he's kind of continued to work towards en route to being the team's Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. This was Jeff Simmons on the red carpet with Jimmy Wyatt.
I know that Jeff was the right candidate for this city this year.
Yep.
He did a lot in the city, man. He always has been. He's been a philanthropy first kind of guy. He's been a do it instead of talk about it kind of guy since he got here, and he's proved himself time and time again. He's special, man. I'm here for Jeff Simmons. Baby.
I know you told me before that I guess when you left the facility, he's the first guy that maybe called you one time when you made
He didn't even let me leave the facility. He chased me out the door.
Yeah.
I felt the ground shaking. It was Jeff Simmons behind me going, yo, when you want to go do that?
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. Just a different guy, man.
Yeah, and
man, it means a lot. I just walked back there to a tour bus and hear him say that to me, man.
it's one of them dreams come true, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, growing up, I would have never thought a country music singer like Jelly Roll will come to an event like this just to support me. You know, them the type of guys we used to look up to and still look up to, and just to be here in Tennessee, you know, playing in Tennessee, and Jelly Roll grew up in Tennessee, a fan of the Tennessee Titans, a fan of mine. It's a blessing, and I'm blessed to be in Jelly Roll circle, and you know, it's amazing, man. Like I said, it's to have Jelly Roll here, it's big.
Yeah.
It's not just big for me, but big for the Titans.
Did you?
So really cool to see friend of the radio show, Jelly Roll, going out to New Orleans, going down to New Orleans to support Jeff Simmons, and Jeff to get to, you know, share his philanthropic efforts on a national stage, on a national platform with a lot of other NFL players who are trying to get the same things done in their respective communities and give back. Always a cool thing. All right. We are going to talk about Super Bowl. We're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk a little bit about NFL honors as well, because Bert is very upset. Bert is very upset about Josh Allen winning the most valuable player, robbing Lamar Jackson of being a 3-time NFL MVP, though it's fair to expect, although maybe it's not a fair expectation, that Lamar would have another opportunity to win an MVP, because this was, I mean, Bert, you might correct me if I'm wrong, this was Lamar Jackson's best statistical season. It's the best version of him that I've ever seen. So what contentions do you want to bring up? How do you want to slander the name of the Bills quarterback? What is your case for Lamar Jackson as NFL MVP?
What's my case? My case is he had a harder strength of schedule. In fact, I believe Josh Allen's strength of schedule was below, in the bottom half of the league. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson had a top 10 strength of schedule. He played every single team that made the playoffs in the AFC, and the only ones he lost to were the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1 and the first matchup against the Steelers, who they then beat twice in a row, once in the regular season and then again in the entry-level game in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson had a better statistical year than Josh Allen in every feasible statistic outside of quarterback sneaks. If that's what being the MVP is, if you just need someone to shove on your ass and not take a bunch of sacks, something else Josh Allen's good at. I'm not gonna, and I don't want to say this to shit on Josh Allen, because Josh had a great year. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the parameters in which we name this have been shat upon. So now it's like, oh, okay, well, we just hadn't given it to this guy, because the only thing I have to ask anyone who voted on this, would you feel differently? Would you have voted differently if Lamar Jackson had yet to win an MVP? And if the answer is yes, then this is bullshit. What are we doing? You're changing statistics around. You're changing history around. And I saw other people tweet about this. Josh Allen deserved an MVP. That's a better indication of what this era was. He didn't freaking earn it. He did. If he's not the MVP, it's the same argument that Dan, and not to just filibuster here, but this shit really pissed me off. Just the way that we go about doing this. Like Dan Orlovsky was on a panel today with Jeff Saturday, Adam Schefter, and a terrible Ravens fan, because Dominique Foxworth at the table, former NFL PA leader, and he was giving his excuses as to why he voted Lamar for the AP quarterback one, but not for the MVP. And his argument was, well, Josh Allen did more with less. Josh Allen elevated his team. Josh Allen, and Dominique Foxworth laughs openly and is like, okay, so is this the MVP of the league or the MVP of the Buffalo Bills? Because there's no doubt that Josh Allen is the most valuable player on that team, but in the league, shut up. What are we doing? And Dan Orlovsky, by the way, the same man that tweeted in preseason that with the weapons Josh Allen had, it would be a top 10 offense. So you can't shit on the team and say they're underrated when James Cook tied for the league in touchdowns with Derrick Henry. And it just doesn't – I can't hear an argument where you would tell me he had a better statistical year or mattered more to his team than Lamar Jackson did.
No, there is no argument to say that other than the 12 rushing touchdowns where he's just goal line vulturing. Like that's the only statistical. I'm sure there are some metrics where Josh Allen played better. If you wanted to dive into some of the analytics on it, I'm sure there are some places where Josh Allen proved to be a better player at the position. But again, to your point, I love that point made by Dominique. Is this the MVP of the Buffalo Bills or is this the league MVP? And the laziest argument, I feel, is this one that I see in the comment section from Caleb Gray, because one, it's incorrect, and two, I think it's misguided. Caleb writes, if you're live streaming the podcast today, Lamar Jackson also had another finalist in Derrick Henry on his team where Josh Allen didn't. Derrick Henry wasn't an MVP finalist this year. Derrick Henry was not a player that received a vote in any of the 5, 1 through 5, where the MVP is voted on. He was not a part of the MVP conversation this year. And the conversation is not Lamar Jackson had Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had Lamar Jackson this year. That's the difference. Lamar Jackson outperformed his 2 previous MVP campaigns. He played the position at a higher level than I've ever seen him play that specific position. There was not a quarterback where you have 40-plus touchdowns passing, 4 interceptions in the regular season, which is crazy. You have 915 rushing yards this year, almost 1,000 rushing yards from your quarterback position. Lamar Jackson did not have Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had Lamar Jackson. And to try and dilute Lamar by using Derrick against him is one of the laziest, most nonsensical arguments that I think you could possibly find. Derrick Henry had the career resurgence here. All Lamar Jackson did was play out of his mind the best we've ever seen him play. There is not a quarterback in the NFL this year, if quarterback is the most important position, and quarterback dictates much of the MVP voting, where Saquon Barkley didn't even get a first-place vote this year, Bert. It's crazy. Not a 1. Derrick Henry even in 2020 got 1 first-place vote, but Saquon in arguably a better season, a more efficient season certainly than Derrick had in the COVID season, didn't even get a single first-place vote for the running back stands out there, even though the NFL this year told us that the ground game is still critically important and that these things ebb and flow. If the MVP is a quarterback award anymore, and the same people, or a chunk of the same people that voted on the AP First Team All-Pro, picked Lamar Jackson as the AP First Team All-Pro AFC quarterback, but then voted Josh Allen over him as the most valuable player in the league, it's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. To your point, it's not about diminishing either player. It was a fun MVP race. It was a competitive MVP race. I think both players had moments where you could point and say, okay, that, if they win the MVP, that is going to be the MVP moment. Because again, it's a regular season award. But to me, it is such a lazy part of the discussion to say, well, Josh Allen was due. No, not if he didn't earn it. The Eagles are not due a Super Bowl. If the Chiefs beat them, the Chiefs were the better team on that particular day. The Chiefs earned that Super Bowl, if that is to play itself out in Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans on Sunday. Nobody is due anything in the NFL. Football is about as close to the ultimate meritocracy as you could possibly find. Don't tell me that anybody in any sport where again, your job and your ability to retain your job is based on your performance. Don't tell me that anybody in the NFL is due shit. And I don't respect that conversation. I respect Derrick Henry's on Lamar Jackson's team too. I respect that even less. But that to me was the most nonsense. There are a variety of nonsense arguments being made for Josh Allen this year, even though Josh Allen is still a spectacular player and one of the best 5 players at his position.
Sure. And I don't think anyone's saying that Lamar or Derrick's impact on Lamar. Derrick played 57% of the snaps. So just like statistically, he was not on the field for over 40% of the snaps that were played. So I'm not diminishing his impact. He just was not on the field as much as Lamar was. Lamar plays 100% of the snaps. A couple of these people. What the fuck? What the hell are we talking about? The Bills have a bad roster? On what planet they were hurt? They have a better offensive line. I think they have
one of the best offensive lines. Did you see James Cook's rushing production this year and his scoring production? James Cook was tied, I think, he was certainly top 3 in touchdowns this year.
16 touchdowns. He, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jalen Hurts all had 16 touchdowns. The other thing that doesn't make sense for me, they had an infinitely better defense on paper than the Ravens. At the beginning of the year, the Ravens were the worst team against the pass in the league. They improved as the season went on. But to say the Bills had a bad roster, that just makes absolutely zero sense to me. But again, the race is over with. There's nothing we can do about it. We're just bitching about it.
Another dumb version of this argument. If you want to bring up statistics, then last year Josh Allen had better stats than Lamar Jackson. He had 18 interceptions. What the fuck are you talking about?
Hey, you had to get one in too.
Interceptions. The fastest way to lose a football game, to directly cost your team the opportunity to win a football game. Did you not just learn this? Are you not a Titans fan? Maybe you're not. I don't know. But certainly you've paid attention to the Tennessee Titans at some point. They led the league in giveaways this year, 34. It made them the worst team in football because you can't sustain that way. 18 interceptions is enough to cost you the MVP because your mistakes are directly inhibiting your team's ability to win. Stupid.
Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel,
Amari Cooper.
Yeah, he said except Cooper, but exactly. They traded for him. They added him to the room, so it's a better room than it was perceived to be at the beginning of the year.
That comment is so like, everybody in the world could name a Buffalo Bills wide receiver not named Amari Cooper. Are you just assume that the rest of the public is not watching football? I mean, I don't gambling or fantasy football people. The argument, again, there are biases here that people may have. And again, you're entitled to your opinion. But if that is your opinion, we're allowed to point out why it's dumb.
Yeah, and I don't think they're dumb. I just disagree with you.
I think the argument's dumb.
And the argument's dumb that he was owed one.
They are displaying the behavior of a dumb person.
I think the argument of that, if you're arguing that Josh Allen deserved one, that's a dumb argument, in my opinion. And I'm not disagreeing with you that saying stats aren't the end-all, be-all in MVP voting. I agree with you, Caleb, in that fact. But I would say that Lamar had better statistics against better competition than Josh Allen did. And by the way, Josh Allen against playoff teams in the regular season, I believe he was 2-5 against playoff teams. So he had a poorer record, or 2-3. It was a total of 5 games. A poorer record against better competition when he played those good teams. So at the end of the year, when Josh Allen closed out with 2 Patriots game and a Jets game, I'm not impressed with any statistical output. Because if you add up, the Jets were done, Aaron Rodgers had packed it up, and the Patriots were just begging for someone to give them a loss so they could stay in the top 3. I just don't respect when Lamar closed the season out with the Steelers, the Texans, and I believe the Browns at home. So anyway, that's where I stand on it. I think, you know how people say, not my president, not my MVP, DEI MVP. I love that.
DEI MVP.
I saw that last night. People just talk shit back and forth, and Bills fans are like, we knocked you out of the playoffs and took your MVP. And that's their right. I would be talking the same shit. I would be talking the same shit if the shoe was on the other foot. So,
but people who do not root for the Buffalo Bills and are trying to talk shit are doing it very, very poorly.
It is what it is. You know what? My whole goal for this year and the 2025 football season is to not take anyone else's opinion too seriously. Because I feel like as football fans, we take it as a slight against us personally, and the Ravens do not know me. Lamar Jackson does not know me. Ray Rice, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, none of those people give a shit about if I'm offended that someone talks shit about them. And I feel like as sports fans, we do that a lot. So that's my goal, is to be less sensitive about my football team.
It's a solid goal, although I think that's what makes the fan part of it fun, even if it's emotionally exhausting for you. Or you could just veer to the extreme like I do and just not give a single solitary shit about anything that anybody else says about anything, even if they're smarter than you. And you just believe that you're right about everything. It's a great way to exist.
We're getting there. We're getting there. And if anyone out there is not a Ravens fan and happens to pull a Donruss downtown Lamar Jackson, Edgar Allan Poe variant, just let me know. Be willing to pay top dollar. As far as top dollar is concerned, probably 60% of the total value. But that's neither here nor there. We'll look at the grade. We'll look at how the corners look, the surface, all that jazz. But hit me up. I got some money.
Bert, always a good. Bert knows ball, so it's always good to have Bert pop in here and give his perspective, and perhaps I'm sure he'll try to hold us hostage for more money if I make him appear on the podcast on a more regular basis. But perhaps we'll check in with Bert from time to time throughout the course of the draft. Listen, it's been a fun football season. Enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday. We are going to get very draft heavy in the coming weeks and months. Of course, I'll be at the Combine, which is the next major phase of the draft process, and we'll look forward to bringing you guys up there with me and to share with you a bunch of really good conversations that we're getting ready to have that we're in the process of planning. We also have a big announcement to make on Monday's radio show, which we're very excited about an event that you are going to want to attend if you are a fan, 1 of the draft, 2 of the NFL, and 3 of the Tennessee Titans, or however you want to order those things. Like I said, have a great last weekend of football. Cherish it, relish it, spend it with family and friends. Eat plenty of good food, and we will see you next Friday on the 615 Sessions